Hello, future educator, and welcome to another teacherpreps.com test prep lesson. Here to help you ace that upcoming Praxis 5002 exam. By the end of this lesson, you'll have a firm grasp for important test topics such as the difference between teaching high-frequency words and decodable words. And then we'll move on to teaching root words as well as their affixes. We'll also talk about effective instructional strategies that will meet the needs of all of our English language learners, a super important test topic to ace your upcoming exam. Finally, I'll wrap up the lesson by giving you instructions, the lesson and information that you'll need for test day, all about the different organizational structures that are found in expository texts. Now, if your upcoming exam is making you feel kind of worried or nervous, don't worry about a thing. These lessons will help you get that passing score. And if you're not already enrolled into our teacherpreps.com test prep program, make sure you make your life super easy. Just click the link in the description below and you'll get instant and full access to all of our study materials like our study guide, this very full-length video lesson, as well as full-length timed practice tests. It's going to make everything straightforward and simple for you. Without further ado, let's get started on this lesson. High frequency sight words. These are words that appear often in reading and writing, but may not follow regular phonetic rules, making them both challenging to decode for beginning readers, but extremely important. These are called high frequency words because they appear frequently, and then once they are learned, they're called, do you know? Fill in the blank. I heard you. Sight words. That is correct. All right. Now, these words often cannot be sounded out through the standard phonics patterns, and they need to be recognized by sight, hence these sight words. So these are challenging because we can't teach these types of phonics to them, but they appear so often that they're very important. Now, your exam will likely ask you why sight words are so important for children, and the answer option that you should be looking for on your exam is that they help build reading fluency, allowing students to read more smoothly and accurately. So one more time, what's the reason or what's the importance of teaching high frequency words? Well, A, they appear a lot of the times in the texts, right? Like the, right? So for example, they appear a lot, they don't follow the rules, and they help build reading fluency, which helps build, fill in the blank, reading, you're right, comprehension. All right, let's keep it moving. Examples include the word like the. It does not follow a straightforward phonetic pattern. Also, the word said. You can't just sound that out. Said doesn't look like that, right? Sayad, right? Said. So we just have to teach these. Oh, you see S-A-I-D? Boom, said. As well as the word come, for example, where the pronunciation doesn't align very neatly with the spelling. Now, decodable words, remember this word decodable, reading, to decode. These are words that do adhere to phonics rules. These are easier to sound out while reading. Students, they can use their knowledge of phonics in order to decode them, or AKA read them. Keep in mind that teachers, us teachers, you and I, we focus on decodable words in early reading instruction because this is an effective way to develop our students' phonics skills. This is the way that we build from simple to complex. Now, let's take a look at grade appropriate examples. I'm about to switch over to a couple different slides, and this is really important because oftentimes on exam day, you will be asked, based off this, you'll be given a scenario-based question. This student is in this grade level, and they are struggling with this issue. What's the best effective instructional strategy to meet their needs? Something like that. So make sure to pay attention to these next couple slides. I know that you are an active listener. I know that you're an active participant in these lessons. And I know that you've got your notebook and your pen out, right? You're not just watching these, sitting back, kind of forgetting about stuff. You are taking notes. And in this next couple of slides, I highly recommend that you draw an arrow or like a table from kindergarten to the words that I present, from first grade, from second grade, from third grade to the words that I present. So from kindergarten, students or like us effective teachers can present these types of words to our students. Mat, sit, Fan, notice how straightforward the CVC pattern is. These patterns are the most simple, and that's why we start with them. For first graders, moves up a notch. What do you notice? What do you see? What's the difference between kindergarten and first grade? You're right, I see that too. Next, we have words like chip, shop, and wish. These include, do you remember what that word is? That CH, that SH in the beginning of shop, the SH at the end of wish. What are these called? These are called digraphs. Remember, these digraphs are two letters that make one sound, which are slightly more complex, but still decodable. So we're moving from simple to complex. In second grade, our students will begin to read, or us teachers will begin to teach our students to read words like float, train, sleep. These words may involve blends or vowel digraphs, but still follow phonetic rules that students at this level can now decode. Moving on to third grade, we're looking at complex consonant patterns that are appropriate for these third graders at this age. Words like scrunch, twist, straight. These include three-letter blends and unique consonant combinations that are challenging, but again, decodable for third graders. Next up, we also have what we call multisyllabic words, which are longer but phonetically regular. I'm thinking fantastic, celebrate, inventory. These words help apply their phonetic skills across multiple syllables, hence multisyllabic. Fantastic, celebrate, inventory, multiple syllables. Now, words with advanced vowel patterns, we can think of caution, courage, bought. These are suitable for fourth graders. Now it's time to take a look at roots and affixes, which help students decode unfamiliar words. We began to talk about this in earlier lessons and earlier slides. Let's dive into it now. Roots, these are the base of a word, which are formed. For example, the root spect, this means to look in Latin. From this root, we can teach our students to self-learn words like inspect, which means to look into, spectacular, which refers to the one who looks, and spectacle, which refers to something to look at. So notice that we can teach our students roots, which often come from English, from Latin and Greek, past history, the etymology of this, and they can go, holy moly, my teacher taught me spect, and I don't know what inspect is, but I can kind of infer it, okay? We can teach our students. That's what's really important. We want to give them the tools and the skills so that they can go off and self-learn, become independent learners, critical thinkers. Another example, the root chron, which comes from the Greek language. This root is found in words like chronology, which means sequence of time, or synchronize, which means to do at the same time, as well as chronic, which means happening over time. Let's go on now to prefixes. These are added at the beginning of the root word in order to modify its meaning. For example, the prefix un adds the meaning of absence. So when we add it to words, let's say happy, this word would now become unhappy. And the meaning changes. Remember, the prefix un to usual. We now have unusual, and that results in not usual or not happy, as in the first one. While pre, the prefix pre, this means to come before. So for example, pre plus test results in pre-test, which means before the test. Now moving on to suffixes. And again, remember, I know that you know what unhappy and unusual these mean, but it's important to realize, kind of go back, kind of look from the bird's eye view and go, oh yes, that is why we teach prefixes, because what I'm helping you do is think about how to pass this exam, and your test is going to ask you questions like, why and how do we teach prefixes? What's the best or most appropriate, most effective way. And you can say, oh, yeah, I remember that slide from teacherpreps.com. Prefixes are something added to the beginning of a root word to modify its meaning. I can easily answer this. Done. All right, now let's move on to suffixes. You're doing great. Thanks so much for watching. These are added to the end of a root word in order to, again, change the meaning. All right, so looking at, let's say, the suffix able, which means capable or capable of, even. So readable means capable of being read, and enjoyable means capable of being enjoyed. Now, the suffix tion, chun, to kind of pronounce it, turns verbs into nouns. For example, action means the process of doing, and celebration is the process of celebrating. When when encountering an unfamiliar word, effective teachers teach our students to look for the root and any prefixes or suffixes. Now, understanding these parts often provide clues about the word's meaning, even if the student has never seen the word before. For instance, in the word telegraph, we have the root word graph, which we know means to write. And we have the prefix tele, which means far or over the distance. And if you combine these, we have telegraph, and students can figure out that this word must mean to send a message over a long distance. In the word discontented, we have the root word content, the prefix dis, which means not, and the suffix ed, which means past tense or state of being. Therefore, discontented describes the state of not being content. Now, by teaching these strategies, you and I, us effective teachers in the classroom, we will equip our students with the tools, the independence to tackle new vocabulary, enhancing their reading comprehension and fluency. So again, this is key. This is a key moment in the lesson, future teacher. If you receive a question on test day that asks about the benefit or the importance of teaching roots, affixes, prefixes, look for an answer option that demonstrates the knowledge that this understanding helps our students become independent word learners. It helps them decode the word so that they can master the fluency and master the reading comprehension. Moving on to how to delineate common phonics and word recognition approaches for our English language learners. If knowing effective teaching strategies to help English language learners builds their reading skills. This is a crucial aspect of this exam, so let's make sure you are 100% prepped for test day. First and foremost, we're going to be talking about explicit phonics instruction. Now, in teaching phonics, the best approach is to teach phonics rules explicitly and systematically. ELLs, English language learners, they benefit from clear and direct instruction that breaks down the sounds of English into their corresponding letters. If on exam day you receive a question about effective teaching strategies for our ELLs, look for an answer option that includes something like visual aids, charts, multimedia resources, the five senses: taste, touch, smell, sight, hearing, because this is how kids learn. And we want to make it engaging, and your exam wants you to demonstrate your understanding of this. So, for example, how could we teach the combination CH in like cheese versus school? Again, use visual aids, get creative, charts, multimedia resources. Use sand. If you you can write in sand, write in the air. You can trace words, but make it apparent, the difference that, that combination CH is used in different ways at the beginning, in the middle, possibly in the end. Next on the list is multisensory learning. I love this part. The best approach is to engage multiple senses to help our English language learner students to find and make connections between sounds and letters. Now, one way is to implement this through activities that involve, as I just mentioned, seeing, hearing, touching, use all of the five senses. For instance, Have students trace letters while saying the corresponding sounds. Cheese, 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 ch, 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 to build their word recognition. Now, third on the list is language rich learning environment. This is about the classroom. It's important to create a classroom environment rich in language exposure. English language learners need abundant opportunities to hear and interact with English in context. Just having words inside books isn't enough. Think about what you can label. I love labels. If you've ever studied a second language as an adult, you'll realize how effective labeling things are. Like, oh, this is my toothbrush. Oh, this is a mirror. Like, put a post it note, mirror, and book, and just all of the words that students don't yet know, but are like at the right level. And like the words that they use, make little labels in your classroom in order to create a rich environment filled with language exposure. To implement this, again, label the classroom objects with names and simple sentences. Allow students to tell you a story while you listen and you write it down for them. It's like it's a luxury for a student, for honestly anyone. If I was to tell someone else a story and they wrote it down, I'd be like, whoa, this is amazing. Now, the thing is that kids, they like reading the stories from the books that we have, but you'll notice that they love reading their own stories. So you can say, tell me a story or tell me about your morning or something. And you write that paragraph down, in the neatest handwriting that you can, or possibly type it, give it back to them, and they can read it because it was their own story. They not only enjoy it, but it's an excellent way to help build their both vocabulary and fluency. All right. Fourth on this list is vocabulary building, which I was just talking about. We need to teach vocabulary explicitly, directly, in context. This is important. That word in context. Circle that while you're taking your notes. I know you're taking notes right now, right? Good. Remember, in context, this means within sentences and text passages, not only providing our students with a list like old school spelling terms. We don't just want to give our students a list of words and say, here you go, kid, memorize this. On Friday, we're going to have a spelling test. It's not about just understanding how to spell it. It's about understanding the meaning. So we provide new vocabulary in context. To implement this, you, as the effective teacher, what you might do is pair new words with pictures. You might use them in sentences. You might connect them to the student's native language. So if you happen to be able to, or hey, now we have AI, ChatGPT, Google Translate, you can use the new vocabulary, and you can say like, oh, cat is CAT in English, and it's like this in that student's second or first language. If they're from Japan, say, and show them the Japanese, and they might go, oh, okay. It really helps them. All right, moving on to phonemic awareness in context. We help our students develop phonemic awareness through listening and speaking activities that make the sounds of English clear and distinguishable. And again, as you, the effective teacher, you can implement this by using rhymes, songs, and games to highlight the words. Effective learning is oftentimes almost always fun. When you're having fun, you are learning at the peak of learning. Then focus on phonemic manipulation activities. Again, we've talked about this before: substituting, deleting, segmenting, blending the sounds. Give them a bunch of different opportunities to demonstrate their skill of phonemic awareness. All right, you're doing great. Let's keep going. Next, we'll proceed with the use of cognates. Pause right here. Do you remember what this word is? It is a key term that you will likely see on exam day. Take a moment here. Cognates. Remember, these are the words in two languages, such as Spanish and English, that share a similar meaning, spelling, and pronunciation. If you want to use cognates, which is a great activity, a great method to help our English language learners, this helps them draw connections in order to expand their vocabulary. Moreover, teach students to recognize patterns and similarities between English and their native language. Again, this makes decoding and understanding the meaning, more, it builds that connection with them. Now, for example, Spanish, familia, is similar to English, family. Lastly, we have continuous assessment. This is really important. Your exam will likely check that you understand to regularly assess your English language learners' progress in phonics and word recognition in order to tailor instruction effectively. I've mentioned this in past lessons, previous slides. The way that we know what to teach each day is by knowing what gaps need to be filled, because we don't want to teach information skills topics that they already know. That's both boring and ineffective. We want to keep progressing forward from simple to complex, and the way we do that is to provide small informal and or formal assessments in order to understand who knows what and who still needs to work on different skills. So keep that in mind. Continuous assessment is an important topic on your exam, and know that that's where the data comes from in order to structure your upcoming lessons. Now, as a teacher, you can use, again, informal lessons, observations during reading activities, or formal assessments like reading inventories to gauge and support your students' learning needs where they're at right now, each and every individual learner in your classroom. Our next exam topic is understanding how to use key ideas and details to help our students comprehend literature and informational text. Notice how these are two different types of text: fiction and nonfiction. Literature, informational. Informational might also, pro tip, be called expository on your exam. So if you receive, something, 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 expository text, and you go, oh, what is that? It's informational text. All right. You probably know that, but hey, want to make sure that you're totally prepared. That's my job. Let's go. Next, key details about this: specific pieces of information that support the understanding of the main idea or theme of a text. So these details are critical, they're crucial, they're important for building a comprehensive picture of the text's message. We need the students to learn and understand what they just read. In the story, let's take some examples: The Tortoise and the Hare. The details include that the hare's overconfidence and the tortoise's steady pace. These are the key details that help children understand the theme, that perseverance can often and does often lead to success. Now let's understand the difference between moral and theme. Probably another topic you'll see on your test. A moral is a lesson that can be learned from a story's plot. It is often explicitly stated in, for example, a fable. So example here, let's use the moral of the tortoise and the hare again. This is that slow and steady wins the race. Also teaching the value, again, of persistence and patience. Recall that the theme is understanding the message or the big idea of the story. It is a universal statement about life or human nature that the author communicates through the narrative of telling that story. In, for example, you can remember To Kill a Mockingbird. This is by Harper Lee. One of the themes is the destructiveness of racial prejudice, demonstrating through, if you recall reading that trial of Tom Robbins and the impact on its characters. To support the interpretations of the moral and the theme, it's important to cite specific evidence from the text. So your exam might say, how to do this effectively, and it's your job to say, well, we need to teach our students to cite evidence in order to support or back what they think is the moral or the theme. And this practice involves, as you know, what we need to teach: quoting, or providing quotes from the text, or paraphrasing from excerpts that illustrate both the author's intentions and supports the students' theme or moral of what they think is the theme or the moral. So their sort of thesis. Now, to support the theme of racial prejudice, to go back to Killing a Mockingbird, we might ask our students to cite the scene where Atticus Finch discusses the injustice of the jury system with his son, Jem, highlighting how deeply ingrained racism can influence legal judgments, if you recall back to Kill a Mockingbird. Now, it is very likely that on your exam you will be asked questions about the different instructional strategies toward teaching fiction versus nonfiction. Remember that is the informational text, or another word is to say expository text for the nonfiction. So let's get you totally prepped right now. In literature, having students identify the key details and themes in a literary text, which we just discussed with examples, and then have them or allow them, teach them to find quotes in order to support their interpretation. Then what you can do is you can move on to discussing this in small groups and or in large group as a class. While students, as you can see from the picture here, that we have a student raising his hand as the student, this is the background of the blackboard is math, but still you can elicit what the student believes. You can write different opinions, different ideas on the white or blackboard behind you, and then everyone is learning what other people are thinking. It's really helpful. Moving on to informational text. When reading these types of texts, we can ask our students to summarize the main idea. We can ask them to list the key details that support the idea, as well as cite evidence from the text. Notice how we go from what did you infer and can you prove it, both for literacy and informational text. This can involve highlighting different facts for informational texts in order to support what the student thinks, feels, or believes. Teaching strategies. Keep an eye out on your exam for questions that involve effective teaching strategies. We need to encourage our students to discuss their findings and interpretations in small groups, pair groups, individuals, and whole class discussions so that they can share different perspectives and also hear from other students in the classroom too. We can assign essays or response papers where students must argue a point about a theme or a moral of the story, citing evidence from that text. And we can also have students compare and contrast themes across different texts, supporting their arguments with different citations from each work or each text passage or each article. Now, let's discuss how to identify key details and central ideas in informational texts in case you receive a question on this topic for your exam. The central idea of an informational text is the primary point or concept that the author wants to convey to the reader. Remember, this is the main passage around which the entire text is structured. An article about the importance of bees in an ecosystem, for example, might be that the central idea could be that bees play an important role or even a crucial role in pollination and biodiversity, and their decline could have severe consequences for global food supplies. Now, let's move on to extracting key details from a text. These are the supporting facts, the examples, the statistics, or the explanations that bolster the central idea. These details provide evidence and depth to the main point, which helps us to understand, to clarify, and the author to elaborate on the central theme. In this same article about bees, key details might include statistics on the decline of bee populations, could be examples of crops that rely on bees for pollination, and also actions being taken in order to protect the bee habitats that we have. And lastly, to validate interpretations of the central idea, the key details, it is essential for our students, and essentially for us, to teach our students to cite text evidence directly from that informational text. This means, again, quoting, paraphrasing, referring back to illustrations, charts, diagrams that were presented in that text. Let's now take a look at instructional strategies for different types of questions that you might receive. For example, we need to teach our students to read with a questioning mindset. Remember, they're not just readers, they're investigators. They have this questioning mindset and they present, we can present questions to our students that are open ended, such as, what is the author trying to tell us? And why is this information important? Also, we need to encourage our students to use graphic organizers, right? So cater to all the different types of learners, as well as teach them the skills that will allow them in the future to learn more independently. So, not only graphic organizers also think about bullet lists and all of the different types of ways that they can learn. For example, story grammar outline, the 5 bullet point star, remember the who, what, when, where, why. For example, along with that, we can hold classroom discussions where students must back up their statements with text evidence or direct quotes or paraphrasing or summarizing what was mentioned from the text. Now, when teaching, a key term to look for is to find options that use direct modeling. So, modeling is key here. Our exam wants to make sure that we understand that one of the best ways to learn is by example, aka through modeling the correct behavior or the correct steps in order to complete the skill or task that we're teaching our students to. So, if we ask our students to find the who, what, when, where, why on a particular type of text, we can show them. I'm not just going to tell them to just go do it. I'm going to say, this is what I do. I draw a star. The star has 5 points, and I label each point with who, what, when, where, why. While I read the text, anytime I come up with any of this information, who is the characters, where is the setting, etc., and so forth, I jot a little note down, and they can go, oh, well, I can do that too. Okay. Now, let's take a look at how to make inferences to support text evidence. Remember that inferences are conclusions or interpretations that are not directly stated in the text, but they can be drawn out based on the evidence that you read from the text. If a text describes a character shivering and looking out at the gray sky with a frown, we teach our students to infer that this student is more than likely feeling sad or anxious. Once an inference is made, we then teach our students to support it with evidence from the text. Examples include citing the description of the character's physical actions, shivering or frowning, for example, and the setting, it's a gray sky. And these serve as evidence that supports our inference that we believe the character is sad or anxious. Lastly, we connect the students' descriptions to our inference. Your exam will check your understanding of the following text structures, so let's make sure you know all of these. Get them totally down. First and foremost, cause and effect. This structure explores reasons why things happen, aka cause, and the outcomes of these events, also known as effect. It is commonly used in texts to aim to explain the origins of a phenomenon or the results of certain actions. Then let's talk about problem and solution. This format presents a problem and then outlines one or more solutions to that problem. It's often used in persuasive texts. In compare and contrast, this structure examines the similarities and the differences between two or more items or ideas. It helps in understanding each item more deeply in relating to the others. In chronological or sequential order, information is presented according to the order in which events occurred or steps that need to be taken. Often these are used in historical texts and or how-to guides. Description or spatial order provides details about how something looks, how it feels, how it works, and how often it is described. We use items or conditions in relation to their physical location or layout. That's the spatial order part of it. Next up, we have classification and division. Here, this organizes information into categories or groups based on shared characteristics and or criteria. When it comes to order of importance, information is organized from the most to the least or vice versa. Lastly, enumeration or listing is when information is presented as a list in a specific order.